My parents were probably functioning alcoholics. It's a disease and it's hereditary, I think. I feel like I had it. And so I would poke at it for years. I'm like, I'm fine. Poking. And then one day it goes, "Argh." And you're like, oh shit, man, I need a drink too. So I could stop on a dime. That was my defense, really. Oh, a drink, I could stop. And I would. I'd stop. I would, do whatever project, a pilot, a TV show, whatever. And then I would reward myself with, okay, I went to do it. And it just got harder and harder to stop and start again. And mostly alcohol. Then like later you use ecstasy and this kind of stuff. And there's this drug called GHB, which is lethal. And that's what I had when I got the D.U.I. I was so out of it, they didn't take a mugshot. Thank God. I could have died. I could have killed people. And you know what I did? I went home and I sat in my office and I drank another bottle of wine. No, it was bottom, but I didn't get it. The kids, especially Jodie Sweetin, are getting these gigantic laughs, and I'm like getting none. You can't even hear my dialogue. People are laughing at them so much. And I slowly, like, have you read one of those readings where you just suck and you like, I'm like sliding at the table. And I ran, we were at the Century Plaza Hotel, I'll never forget. And I ran out to the lobby and I had I jammed the quarter in the thing. And I called my agent, like, get me the F off this show. It's a kiddie show, And I'm here to say I was wrong about that one. What we lacked in sophistication, we had just a ton of sweetness. And the brain moved to the side and it left room to just feel something wholesome and good and like a good home-cooked meal, I think. There was no central character on that show, is what I realized. The central character was love. And I think people watching, it made them, it brought out the best in them, too. We were everybody's family. We weren't the traditional, that people thought was a dad and mom and 2.5 kids. We were three guys living in San Francisco. We didn't raise an eyebrow over that. And so every year that divorce has become more prevalent and same-sex marriage and different families in different sizes and colors and shapes, I think people related to it more that way too. And if you didn't like it, we didn't make it for you.
It's Mayim and Bialik's breakdown. She's gonna break it down for you because she knows a thing or two. And now she's gonna break down. It's a breakdown. She's gonna break it down.
Hi, I'm Mayim Bialik, and welcome to my breakdown. This is a place where we break things down so you don't have to. Flying solo today, talking to John Stamos, people. We've been trying to get him on for a long time. I'm an Uber fan. I got to meet him once when I was like 12 years old. I don't even know if he's going to remember it, but Emmy-nominated actor and producer. He is a multifaceted performer, not just on television, not just Full House, but also film and theater. Also, he's been playing with the Beach Boys for 30 years as a drummer. What? He has written this book. It's a memoir, John Stamos, If You Would Have Told Me. And the pictures are fantastic. I'm big on pictures in books because I'm essentially a 4-year-old. But two sets of unbelievable pictures with the celebrities he's met, with Paula Abdul, with the Beach Boys, like all the Full House stuff with Bob Saget. And he's going to talk about all of it. He was very close with Bob, very close with his parents. He talks about his first marriage, what it's like being a dad now at 60. An incredible head of hair. If you're watching this podcast, you're going to have your mind blown by what this man's hair looks like. It's unbelievable. It's a pleasure to welcome John Stamos to the Breakdown. Break it down.
Thank you so much. I'm so flattered that you guys asked me to be on here because I'm not as smart as anyone that you've ever had on here.
I would beg to differ. And I will say that I discovered a side of John Stamos as a very emotionally intelligent human being in this beautiful book, your memoir, John Stamos, If You Would Have Told Me.
If you would have told me. Well, that coming from you, that means a lot because you're sure. I've always had an issue with not feeling that I was smart enough, and maybe a relationship or two might have mentioned that at some point, and it sticks with you, that kind of thing. But then I ended up with a book. I never thought I'd write a book, but I ended up with a New York Times best-selling book. So that's I was thinking today, that's like the Scarecrow. Remember, he didn't think he was smart, but then he got a diploma.
Right.
He did that. So I got this as my smart diploma as a book that I wrote.
Well, the book is really, it is well written. It's also just the stories that you tell. I had no idea, and I don't mean to steal the title of your book, If You Would Have Told Me, but if you would have told me, this could be like a great is it true or not? Most of your book. Like,
You're calling me a liar.
no, I'm saying that like the people that you've gotten to work with, the experiences that you've gotten to have, like it's unbelievable. And getting to introduce like your family to Frank Sinatra, like amazing things happened in your life.
Well, I just didn't think, I never thought I'd write a book. I didn't think anyone would be interested. I didn't think I had a story. And then, they asked me a few times, and I was like, no, wait, I don't even know how to spell. I can't, that'd be terrible. And then, I had a son at 55, 55 then. It's been the highlight of my life. And then then Saget died, and I wrote a sort of a story in the LA Times, and I think the publisher saw that, and they said, well, you can write. I said, well, I don't even remember writing it. Do you see that? Did that just pop up?
Yes. This is a photo. This is a photo of me. I think I must be 12 years old. So I don't want to do the math, but I had just worked with Gary Marshall in Beaches. And
Yeah, that was before Blossom, huh?
It was before Blossom. And
Right.
I was, my dad was with me. There was like a march on Washington. We called it homeless people. It's now the unhoused or people experiencing homelessness. But it was a march for the homeless. And we were like hanging out, and I was a very big John Stamos fan. And so I got to meet you and take a picture.
I had some other pictures of us too. That was the only one I could find. But yeah, that was, when was it? In the 80s?
So it would have been 1986 or 7.
Wow. See, even back then we were doing good things for the world.
That's right, we were.
I don't think it worked, but we were there.
So wait, how old were you? I'm trying to do the math. I'm 47 now.
Same here. So I'm 60. I just turned 60 in August.
Oh my gosh. So you were like 25 though. You were like a kid.
So it must have been Full House, right? It was on then? I guess.
No, I don't know. The reason that I know that I don't think it was Full House. It might have been just starting. Another fun fact, place of intersection, my very first audition ever, I started acting right before, like about a year before Beaches. My first audition was to play DJ on
Get
Full
out.
House. I
Really?
swear.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes.
Wow. What of
But
that?
then they were like, John Stamos is going to be the only ethnic person on this show. We can't have two of you.
Yeah, no Jews, no more. Did we finish our other thought? Oh, that's what I think. I asked if you knew Bob. You probably did, right?
Bob and I met at a Yom Kippur break the fast at Jeff Garland's house.
Right.
Because Jeff Garland would host people after services let out. And so I had a really fun, evening with him where I learned he makes a lot of naughty jokes is what I remember
Really?
coming out of that with. Yeah. But then I read your book and I was like, oh, he made a lot of naughty jokes with John Stamos as well. You speak so beautifully. You speak so beautifully of your friendship, and a lot of people who work on a sitcom don't stay close. My experience was like we had 5 years where the thing that kept us together was no longer, and so we kind of all dispersed. But y'all stayed close.
Well, Bob was the one who kept us together, really. Like, I mean, we really did love each other. I'm sure you had that on Big Bang, probably, right? Were you pretty close with everybody? So we wanted to be together, and he was the glue. And now that he's gone, sometimes we don't. I mean, it's going to be 2 years in January. Very strange, very surreal, very sad times that losing him. But thank God we had him when we did, and I think he never left anything on the table. This is a guy who always said, "I love you, I care about you, I'm proud of you," and so that's one little lesson from him. He was a complicated guy, and I had problems. So the 2 chapters, I started off with the chapter that I was horrible. I was not sober, and I got in my car, and I was driving to meet Bob at the Palm, and I got a DUI. I could have killed somebody. It was the worst day of my life ever. And during that, so I thought that was going to be the hardest. So my 5 stages of grief there were, more drinking, sex, all the bad stuff. And then I wrote the second chapter that I wrote. I didn't know where they were going to end up, but the second one was the day that I found out when Bob died and how I found out. And that, thankfully, my 5 stages of grief there was family and therapy and all the good stuff, meditation and exercise stuff. So I had to figure out from A to Z. But the two hardest chapters turned out to be the Full House chapters. And because, being on these iconic shows, it's like, wow, people, first of all, it took me a long time to come to terms with that show. In fact, Jeff Franklin, the creator of Full House, was over recently. He's writing a book. He said, when did you come to terms with Full House? I said, when I wrote this book, when I actually sat down and, wrote out, because you always had a career outside. You were on sitcoms, but then you were making movies and you had a lot of other great things going on. I was just stuck in that character. It finally took me this amount of time to figure out. First of all, I had the critics in my ear. We weren't a Big Bang Theory. We weren't Seinfeld. We weren't these shows. And, they just got to me. And so, but what we lacked in sophistication, we had just a ton of sweetness, and the brain moved to the side and it left room to just feel something wholesome and good and like a good home cooked meal, I think. And every year that the show has been done, which is, like 30 years or something, what I loved about it was when I realized too that we were everybody's family. We weren't the traditional that people thought was a dad and mom and 2.5 kids. We were three guys living in San Francisco. We didn't raise an eyebrow over that. And so every year that divorce has become more prevalent and same-sex marriage and different families in different sizes and colors and shapes, I think people related to it more that way too. And if you didn't like it, we didn't make it for you. So that's that. And there was no central character on that show, is what I realized. The central character was love. We loved each other and we were a family. And I think people watching, it made them, it brought out the best in them too. So maybe that's it.
Mayim and Bialik's Breakdown is supported by BetterHelp.
Jonathan, so many families and communities give gifts at the holiday season. Does your family give gifts?
We do, yeah. Sometimes they ask you, what do you want? And then they say, here you go.
Well, we give gifts too, but I think both of us can really identify with also trying to make the holiday about enjoying time together, eating together, laughing, telling stories, visiting together. And yes, also there's occasional gifts thrown in, but you get to define what you give to yourself at the holidays. And I've found that I need a lot of downtime at the holidays. I need a lot of time talking to my therapist at the holidays. I don't know about you, but this is a great time of year to consider giving BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Jonathan, what do you do to find a therapist with BetterHelp?
You just fill out the brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist. You can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge.
In the season of giving, give yourself what you need with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/break today. Get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp.
HELP.com/break. Mayim and Bialik's Breakdown is supported by Squarespace.
Squarespace is the all-in-one platform for building your brand and growing your business online. How about you stand out with a beautiful website, engage with your audience, and sell anything, your products, content you create, and even your time? Squarespace makes it easy for creators and educators to monetize their content and their expertise in a way that fits their brand. There are member areas where you can unlock a new revenue stream for your business and free up time in your schedule by selling access to gated content like classes, online courses, or newsletters. Stand out in any inbox with Squarespace email campaigns. Collect email subscribers and convert them into loyal customers. Start with an email template and customize it by applying your brand ingredients like site colors and logo. Built-in analytics measure the impact of every send. Support your cause by gathering contributions with PayPal, Apple Pay, Stripe, and Venmo. Gain powerful insights into who's visiting your site and how they're interacting with your content with our in-depth website analytics tools, including page views, traffic sources, time on site, most read content, audience geography, and so much more. Squarespace has powerful blogging tools to share stories, photos, videos, and updates. Categorize, share, and schedule your posts to make your content work for you. Display posts from your social profiles on your website. Automatically push website content to your favorite social media channels so your followers can share it too. Go to squarespace.com/breakdown for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, Jonathan, what do they do?
Use offer code BREAKDOWN to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain.
You know, something that I didn't really realize, the depth of your like teen idol status from even before. Like, people obviously went nuts for you in Full House just because you are who you are no matter what you're doing. But you had, this time on General Hospital when you were part of this, like, kind of earlier, like Tiger Beat, like
Yeah, right.
where the industry really also was geared around, building a fan base, and you got to experience that. So I'm curious if you can talk a little bit about the transition from kind of being literally, built up and living as this like teen idol, and then joining, a very, I don't want to say generic, but a very kind of mainstream American sitcom format.
Yeah. Well, were you saying like, did you think like the Teen Idol thing was more was dirtier or something, or like I
Well, it
didn't
was kind
belong
of
on
sparkly. It was like
Sparkly? Yeah,
it was
yeah.
really sparkly. And so then like, and you talk about sort of like that transition to be like, one of three guys with like a bunch of kids. Like that's a big difference between being like, I'm the hottest guy in the
Oh.
room to like, I'm the hottest guy in the room, but there's also all these other
There's
people.
kids.
Right.
Yeah, I get it. Well, I had some time in between there of General Hospital, and I worked with. That's where I did this. I loved General Hospital. It was a great launching pad, and I hate to call this like it was a learning, because that's not that sounds it sort of diminishes what it was. I just wanted to be funny. I wanted to be on a sitcom. I loved Gary Marshall, and I loved his Happy Days, Laverne and Shirley, Mork and Mindy. That was my goal, to get on a show like that. And I did. Luckily I did. But so on General Hospital, I remember Gloria Monty, who came in and changed the face of daytime. She was such a brilliant woman and such a powerful woman. It was great to see. That was my mom was the CEO of our house, she would say. Like that was her job, and she was proud of that. And my dad never made her feel bad about it, never held money over her head. He worked at a restaurant business that he wanted me to take over. And then watching Gloria as one of my first bosses, really, this powerful female, and when she walked down the halls, I go, oh, there she is. And I didn't know better. When I first met her, I said, we said hi, and then I said, well, Gloria, I got to go. I got to get fitting for my leather jacket. And everybody, you're walking away from Gloria Monty. And she said, that's the way you do it, everybody. Follow that kid. He's going to go far. I loved her. And when it was time to leave, my contract was up. I was supposed to die after 5 episodes of that show. And my contract was up after 2 years. I was making like $400 an episode. 35 million people were watching that show. And I said, I got to go. And she took me to lunch at, it was right out of, it was like a mafia scene. It was right out, it was the Dolce Vita, one of those restaurants. And we walk in, the Italian music's playing. Dean Martin, hand to God, Dean Martin sitting over a couple tables over.
Wow.
And I said, she's going to kill me. This is a hit. She's sitting for a hit job. And she said, so tell me, dear, you want to leave the show? Why? Well, I want to be funny, Gloria. You want to be funny? And I said, yeah. And she said, well, you'll never work in this town again. And I said, well, I probably will. I think I will. Maybe. I was like 19, And my naivete, you had your parents around probably. And you were really, how old were you when you started?
I was on Blossom from 14 to 19, and Beaches I was 12.
So did I answer your quote? So what were we? So I got there. I met Gary on so then from there I had a CBS deal. It was weird. And then I was working for one of my first men bosses who threw me up against the wall because I didn't want to sing a Jailhouse Rock or something. This was the great John Peters, hairstylist to Streisand. And so I was like, wait a minute, bring back the female. I want the female boss. I mean, it was the first bully, my second bully that I ever really dealt with. First one was in school, but so I got on. So I did that show. It was Dreams. It was Andy Borowitz was the writer. This great, satirical political guy, and it was about a band, and no one. I was the only one who played any instruments. I'm like, what are we doing here? They wanted to, do a record and MTV. And then I got on the show with Jack Klugman. He played my dad. It was called You Again. And he was such a brilliant man. He was my first mentor. And he would make me sit in the writer's room on whatever punch-up night was, Wednesday or whatever. And it would be Gary Marshall, Harvey Miller, Jerry Belson, these titans of comedy. And they would make me sit. They said, don't say a word. And I would watch them write and reconstruct a scene and find, and it was just such a valuable education. And then I went into Full House from there. So I wasn't, I did come into the reading, the first table read of Full House, and all the mothers were like, oh, Blackie on General Hospital. And I thought it was my show too. I was like, I got this. Because the kids it was pitched to me as bosom buddies with, maybe some kids in the background. And I remember they were going through a lot of, like with you, with all this casting with these. I said, putting a lot of attention to these kids that aren't going to be part of the show. And boy, was I wrong. And I'm sitting at the table read, like, the big macha. Do you know what macha is? Am I saying that right? A macher?
No.
Macher?
Oh,
Macher?
Macher, yeah.
Macher. I come in as a big macher. And I'm sitting there at the table. And I think I'm going to, and we start the reading. And the kids, especially Jodie Sweetin, are getting these gigantic laughs. And I'm like getting none. You can't even hear my dialogue. People are laughing at them. So, and I slowly, like, have you read one of those readings where you just suck and you like, I'm like sliding at the table. And we were at the Century Plaza Hotel, I'll never forget. And I ran out to the lobby and I I jammed the quarter in the thing. And I called my agent, like, get me the F off this show. It's a kiddie show, And I'm here to say I was wrong about that one.
Especially as your journey kind of goes on and you talk about the things we do to numb out. You talk about drugs, you talk about alcohol, you talk about sex. Like you talk about all these things we do to kind of make our ego feel better.
Yes.
And when I think about that, I think about who the John Stamos was, that was sitting in that chair. And I wonder, did you have a sense then of like, ooh, my ego feels hurt? Or did it just feel like, I don't want to be here?
No, I was hurt. My ego was hurt for sure. I thought it was going to be, and it took me about the first, I did the pilot and I thought, well, this is not going to get picked up. And the kids were screaming through all of it. And I was like, I had to go and loop all these scenes. I'm an actor. What am I? And here I am like trying to figure out, every scene, like, like what I learned with Jack, like, where's the, what are we doing here? Where's the structure? Why is the kid saying you got it, dude? There's no dude in the room. There's a turtle. That's it. And then Saget, was, just cussing and trying to stab his penis with a fork. And so we clashed, to say the least. But my ego was bruised. But then once I got into it, then I got into it. And I noticed that those kids, Mary Kate and Ashley, they had something special. So I started sort of lining my character up with them, Jesse and Michelle. And that pissed Bob off too. I mean, the start of writing those 2 chapters, I guess I sort of talked about that reading. And then I talked about how Bob and I just did not get along for a long time. But it's so strange because he ended up being my all-time best friend. And that's ego, right? The ego was there. Both of us had a large ego and we couldn't look past it to learn from each other's, good parts. I mean, he was a brilliant comic and I wanted to be funny so bad. I loved watching stand-up comics and the timing and the chemistry of it and the science of writing comedy and had these stand-ups. And he was one of the best. So it took me a while to admit that to him. And I'm sure the other way around with me. I was at his funeral. His first wife, who he had 3 daughters with, Sherry, she came running up to me and she hugged me. She said, Bob loved you so much. He also hated you. He was so jealous. And it turns out that, what he didn't know, maybe later he did, but I was jealous of him. I loved the fact that he had a family and I really wanted that.
How many years did Full House go?
8 seasons.
Wow. So when you think about the person you were when it started versus who you were when it ended, what would you say were some of the biggest changes that you can now look back on? Puberty.
No. Like you'd think. I mean, I lived with my parents before for most of the time. And then once I got in there, we started to get popular. And I think there was certainly a time where I was very, got very egotistical, and thought I was too big for whatever. And then I'd go home to visit my parents and my dad would hand me the poop scooper and say, go clean up the dog shit in the backyard. It kept me grounded. But do you mean like mental, I mean,
yeah. I'm just sort of like, did you get more comfortable with, this aspect of, being on a show with kids? Like kind of what did that feel like?
Yeah, I just eventually gave into it. And then I realized how important it was to people, especially kids. We started, Starlight was just starting up then, the Starlight Foundation and Make-A-Wish and all those. And I brought all these kids down on Thursdays and the whole sound, we were in the same sound stage. I think you were in the same stage as us on the Warner Brothers lot, right?
Possibly. Yeah. Yeah. I think I think you're the stage across from us. Yeah.
Oh, it was us, then Friends.
Yeah. We were all in the same, it was all in the 20s. We were all in the same area. Yeah.
And so, the sound stage, like the whole stage was covered with wheelchairs and kids and braces and things. And it was I really, proud to say that the kids really took note of that. And Candace and Jody and Henry, now they're, great philanthropists and they do a lot. So yeah, I gave into it. And my Bob's sister got scleroderma I
Mm.
think we were in the third, fourth season. And then Dave's sister had a terrible cancer. And then my sister she had a brain tumor.
Mm.
And so Bob's sister Gay died. And it's so sad that she didn't get to see, his whole life he spent, raising money and trying to get a cure for scleroderma, which is terrible. And Dave's sister died. And my sister was misdiagnosed and she ended up having MS. But we were still, before that, we were three, we weren't just three guys on a show. We were three brothers grieving their sisters. And so we got closer there. I think we all just settled in and we realized that this is a once in a lifetime, thing that happens. All the stars lined up. It just worked for some reason. I didn't think it would be around. I didn't think we'd be talking about it, now. I wanted so badly to, every season I would like find some dumb TV movie where I was playing like bad guy, kidnapping kids. And the first one I did, I played this terrible Indian guy. Me and Chad Lowe, we kidnapped Joanna Kearns from Growing Pains. It was so stupid. And I just thought, now I'm going to be a real actor.
Mm.
And so when I left, though, I was ready to go. It was time to get out.
We were obviously, working at similar times in television history, but, kind of, a decade or so apart. But I thought that was also interesting that, you really wanted to do comedy and you got to do comedy. But, then there is this desire to be seen as like a real actor, a legitimate actor. And you did end up, getting to not only do, drama stuff, but I had no idea about your interest in musical theater. And this was like a huge part also of your career post-fall. Like you've had a very rich career. You've done all the things.
Well, yeah, but the theater, yes. And that's why and even just writing this book, it's just like a book of gratitude. Like when you're actually writing it down and all the beautiful things in your life, it is just a study in gratitude. Every morning, Jamie Lee Curtis, are you guys friends?
Mm-hmm.
She's the greatest. We talk every morning, but we text, we say a G for what we're grateful for,
Mm-hmm.
fear, what our fears are that day. And then A is our attribute, love or everything. And so that helped. I mean, writing it was that, but yes, I've done a lot, but you still, finally, I think, first of all, I believe that some actors, and I would put you in this category actually, but some actors come out of the gate and they're great. Leonardo DiCaprio, Jennifer Lawrence, there's, and then others. No, you were
I
really,
like
I'm
being
not
in
even,
that. That's a great trio to be part
I'm telling
of.
the truth. Yeah, you were great right out of the
Thank
gate.
you.
It took me 25 years. And it takes some people that long. I finally
Mm.
to relax and to get it. And then just not to care so much. Not to be like, I gotta prove that I'm a good actor. I gotta do words in it. And when Full House ended, I called Jack and Klugman and said, get to the theater. I said, I'm not really a good singer. I like auto-tune on my voice if I can. So that's, and he said, doesn't matter. You guys sell the song, hold the stage. I said, you could hold the stage. You've done it with the Beach Boys, you've done it with sitcoms. I said, I never really, but this I think I hope comes across too, that my parents never put up any obstacles. It was like, you want to do it? Do it, but work hard, be a good person, be nice, be kind, but work as hard as you can. So everything I've done, I just thought, well, I guess I can do it if I really work hard at it. So I got, my agent called and said, Matthew Broderick's leaving How to Succeed in Business, and they want you to replace him. I'm like, okay. I studied with a teacher, studied dance, and went in there and, did the audition and got it. And I think for a while, I was always trying to get back to that fearlessness, right? And just like, who cares?
Mm-hmm.
So you do that. And then, then I did Cabaret, which was quite liberating. And then I had a couple of bad, I did 9. I replaced Antonio Banderas, which was a disaster for me because he was so good. Well, I saw it in previews, right? And we kind of knew him and we're watching it's he wasn't great. It was by the first couple of weeks. He didn't get the jokes and singing.
Mm-hmm.
I said, they're going to ask me to do this. I know it. I got to say no because this show doesn't make sense to me. So a year later, they asked me, and I go, okay, great. I'm thinking Antonio's terrible. I'll come in. And I'm driving down the street to rehearse, but I thought I'd go see the show one more time. The whole street is packed. You can't even get down the street. It's packed cars. I said, "What's going on? Is the president in town?" They said, "No, the driver's." He said Antonio like it was a warm Spanish soup. Antonio, like, Antonio, really? And then across the way, Melanie Griffith was doing her show you couldn't get a ticket. I mean, the whole thing was electrified. And I go in and I hide in the back, and one of the ushers said, "Oh, hey, I heard you're coming into the show." I said, "No, I don't know. I didn't want to. Nobody knew yet, you know." He said, "Oh, thank God. I mean, I like you, but you could never handle this," or something like that. I'm like, "Great," and he was right. I just bombed. So that was that. But the point of all of it was, the last one I did was with James Earl Jones, hands down, you know, one of the greatest living actors. It was called Best Man. It was a Gore Vidal play. Angela Lansbury was in it. Was great people. And I was amazed. And I got close to James, close enough. And he called me Little John. I called him Big Daddy. I walked behind him going, "This is CNN. You know, this is CNN." He was a character. And so there I was on stage with him, 3 hours, standing ovations, everything's great. And the last day I was walking across the stage with him. We were done walking out. And I said, "James, Big Daddy, I have to tell you, you've given me a gift that no one has. People are going to see me so differently now. You've really given me a sense of legitimacy." And I could just never think. He said, "That's okay." I said, "Well, thank you, James." The stage doors open and all the people are outside. They go, Uncle Jesse, say have mercy, say have mercy." And I couldn't look at him. I was like, "Oh my God, what an idiot I am. How did I even think that this has changed?" And I wanted to run out. And just as I'm like trying to slink away, I look over and someone's holding a phone up to James, and they say, "James, could you say, 'Luke, I am your father'? Could you say, 'Luke, I am your..." And I go, "Okay, that's it. Call me whatever you want," you know. And then I just started to relax a little bit, I think.
That kind of like brings us back to when we were talking a little bit about ego. Like, you know, there's like a humility that you have to have, right? When that kind of thing is like thrust in your face.
Yes, and it's okay. You know, it's okay to say I'm, I failed in this, or that's what the book was too. I mean, a lot of it, like they wanted me to write about my ex-wife. I was like, I don't want to say it. And I was really angry at her for so long, and I just took it too far. I just couldn't let it go. She ruined my life, and she, you know, my fairy tale ending with kids and a family, everything I ever wanted, she's taken away from me. And when I got to rehab and I was doing the steps, the fourth step is you write down your resentments.
Searching and fearless moral inventory of yourself.
Oh, you know that one. It's tough. All of them are tough, but that's a really tough one. And the guy said, and the sponsor says, write down, your resentment, like people. And she did this to me, she did that, blah, 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 blah. And I'm filling pages up. And he's like, "You good? You done?" I said, "No, hold on." I said, "Okay, put the pen down." He said, "Now on the next column, write what part you played in all that." I'm like, "What? I didn't pay." He goes, "Even if it was 1%. And I start writing. I go, "Oh, if I'm going to do this, you know, I've come close to screwing up my life completely at this point. If I'm going to do this," and it even thought, I remember thinking, like, even if I spent so much money, I'm going to really do this, I've got to be 100% honest. Anything, and this line came, anything less than the truth is paralysis. And I just started writing like, "Oh, I did this. Yeah, maybe I wasn't so." And it comes to that in this book for me. And it was hard. It was hard to say, "I'm wrong. I'm sorry. I forgive you." It was a lot of that.
Half measures availed us nothing is the quote from the big book. Like,
right.
when you're gonna, like, if you're gonna do it, just go ahead and do it all the way. Like, what if you sort of strip away all the protection and all the, you know, it wasn't my fault, and like, oh, what's left is apparently the root of sobriety, you know, meaning emotional sobriety, like getting to live kind of clean.
How did you know? Have you been through the program or?
Yeah, I sit in the room for people who love people who sit in the drinking program. I've sat in many 12-step rooms. I have literally a physical allergy to alcohol. It makes my palms itch. And so I gave up even trying to drink anymore.
But that's when you come into money. That's right before Big Bang Theory. Wait a minute, my palms are itching.
No,
I'll stop drinking, but I'll take the money.
It was different. I really appreciated how delicate you were in talking about kind of these most intimate parts of your personal life. Like, I think you did a really good job in that it's not our business. Like, I don't believe, you know, that just because you're a public person that we have to know everything about you. And obviously you were married also to a public person. So your life was very, like, you were in the fishbowl. But I wonder if you can speak a little bit to, there's something that you said in the book that I'm not looking for you to sort of dive into in terms of details, but I wonder if you can talk about the concept of why you wrote this. You wrote about your marriage. You said, she doesn't notice me slipping away, and I don't notice myself adrift. She's busy with her career and new friends. We're trying new things and growing, but not together. It's easy to be busy, calendared to the hilt, rushing around and plugged into various projects. It's harder to make time for each other, slow down, disconnect from the chaos of the world, and make eye contact again. I don't talk openly about my feelings of emasculation, and she doesn't share what's in her heart. I think this is what a lot of people think they know about celebrity marriages, right? But what you describe, in my experience, is true of just about every couple, meaning there's the potential for this disconnect. I wonder, now that you're in a different relationship, you're a dad, when you think about, the challenges of being in that marriage or who you were then, what do you know about yourself, especially as a man, a sensitive man?
Yeah. Well, a good example was like today. She came up and I was busy as hell and getting ready for this show and stuff. And she sat on my lap and she was getting ready to work out. And I was like, I started to say, come on, get off my lap. I got to get it. And I didn't. And I just sat there and I put my head on her chest and we just hugged for a long time. She loves to cuddle. And I just thought, like, you know what? Like, what do I have to she'll wait for me if I'm a little late with his microphone. Like, it doesn't matter. So it just, just the little things. She was talking about going to hot yoga and I listened. It was like, I was interested in it because I was, and it's the little things like that, right? That you can find in someone. If someone throws out a little thing at you, and you don't pay it, and the other person doesn't pay attention to it, that's not a good relationship. Even friends, And I think, yeah. So it's those moments. I think microtransactions, little moments. That's what makes me anyway. That so I'm always aware of trying to connect and be there. And as actors, we're always told, be in the moment. And I was like, take this fucking moment. But I realized why is because it's really hard. It's hard to be focused, especially for me, to be focused into the person and listening and being there. Because at the end of the day, if you're not in deep into these moments and really, put yourself there, then you go to bed and you're like, I skimmed through everything today, right? I didn't really have a day because I wasn't connected to anywhere. I was thinking of what's next, what's over here, what's over there. It's hard for me, but I try to do it. You said, I remember what you said. You talked about, if we're going to know half measures, and that was my problem for most of my life. I didn't give. I was all half measures. I would give 60%, and that was still better than most people. But it wasn't my all. And you get to the point too where sometimes, I don't know if you have, like, excuse me, if I give it my all and I fail, then I'm a failure. So you hold back some. You go, well, it didn't. Well, it's because I didn't really try that hard. Does that sound right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I've heard it kind of described that way. Like the notion being, if you assume that you're going to mess up, better to not mess up after having given it your all, because then you'll really be like, oh, I really am a failure, or whatever you think.
Exactly. And in your mind, you can fool yourself. And that's why, like with Caitlin, I said, I'm going to give it 100%, more so than I have in any other relationship, probably. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But at least I know how to do that. And of course, it did. Thank God. And it wouldn't have if I didn't. And so you want to just the reward for hard work is just more hard work, or it's not like, and that was my problem too. Forever I would work pretty hard on something, 80%, get by, it'd be good. Well, a show got picked up. Then it was reward time, booze, have fun, and low hanging fruit, and it was always that. And what are you laughing at?
No, I'm laughing. I like the expression "low hanging fruit." Just like the easiest things to like grab.
Yeah,
I get it.
You didn't know that one?
No,
You're so
I did.
smart. I mean, did they not have that on Jeopardy?
I get the expression.
My in-laws love you on Jeopardy, or when you're on there.
Yes.
And in fact, my mother-in-law, who's the greatest, Leilani, her name is. She got she bought your cookbook and you signed it and you took a picture with her.
Oh, look at that.
Look at that.
I want to ask something. More than once in the book, you refer to yourself as a Peter Pan. And there's a notion to sort of the John Stamos archetype, right? Of like the bad boy, right?
Mhm.
Like you played, like the leather jacket and like the whole thing. Like there's this persona. I'm not saying that's you, but like when people think of that, right? And so then I'm reading your book, and more than twice you mention the Peter Pan syndrome. And then when I hear you talk about, your first marriage, and just I wonder if you could speak to, a lot of women, I think, end up with men who kind of seem like they're not emotionally mature enough, but we keep trying to like make it work. And in many cases it's like he's a Peter Pan, like he's dreamy, or like he wants to just like smoke weed and play guitar or whatever. And I'm not saying those are bad people, but when I hear you talk about what you're like in this marriage and at this point in your life, like, are there some dudes or women? Are there just some people who need to be 50 before they stop needing to be children?
I hope not, but for everyone else's sake, because I just thought being an adult was boring, and all the fun is gone, but
Hmm.
without it, wouldn't have had the rewards of my child and my wife. So that was probably it. And also, and two things: one, in our business, in our success, we've been pretty successful, and we don't have. I didn't have those tent poles of like you have to save your money and you have to do account. You have
Mm.
business managers and assistants and things. And so the Peter Pan thing was that I just wanted to have fun and be young and all. But it stops being cute after a certain age. And you're not going to end up in a relationship with someone that you want to be with if you can't. I think that was the problem with Rebecca. I was fully into the Peter Pan stuff. I didn't want to grow up. It was fun, and party and hang out. And there was nothing serious. It's very hard for me to be serious, but I realized that I need to be. And certainly, to end up where I'm at with and also in the business, now people just take you. It's a whole different thing because now I could just see people respecting me. It's like that's weird, and but and yeah, I think it's that, and I think that I wasn't. I just wasn't. I was that guy that you just said to my first wife. I think I don't normally talk much, and even in the interviews. But I heard something the other day that her husband said, and I don't think they've read it or seen it because you read. I hopefully I feel like I took the high road there, but
Oh yeah. Well, I mean,
you
if you
know,
want my opinion, I really think you did. And for me, the way I read your book, you have all these, relationships with fascinating people, but you really do keep it about yourself in terms of here's where I was at, here's what my experience was, and here's what I learned. So that's kind of what I took from the way you described, a lot of the relationships, whether they were intimate or professional.
well, I wanted to show too that I got cheated on a lot. I got dumped. I got beat. I got bullied. I got punched in the eye when I was a kid that I sort of used as a propel to become famous. Um, but so anytime I could find now, playing with the Beach Boys in front of a million people is not the most relatable thing.
Yeah, do you wanna talk about this? Because this was another thing, like, I I felt like I knew so many things about you and, have been this fan of yours for so many years. Like, this was somewhere in my brain, but the book, like, explains, like, you've had, like, a 30-year relationship with the Beach Boys.
Crazy, huh?
It's really crazy. Like, you're a drummer, and you were in bands, like, when you were young. But you kind of I mean, the funniest description of, like, how this started was that when the Beach Boys found out about you being in the audience, I believe that they were like, are girls gonna go wild and scream? And if so, get him up here." And
Yeah,
that's how you got up there. And I loved how you talked about also having to focus, all of your energy on your music while you can barely hear because of the screaming. And, you talk about like following the elbow, just
yeah.
like to
Carl
like,
Wilson's.
yeah, like Carl, like just to like keep the beat and the amount of focus. And like, I'm a person who loves to sing. I love to play piano. I'm petrified in front of humans having to do that. So I love the way you describe that focus. Talk a little bit about this experience of like being a musician on stage with like your idols.
Yeah, I can't talk. I mean, I can talk about it, but I can't explain it. I don't know how it happened. I don't know why it's still happening to this day. I think, yeah, Mike Love saw the commercial side of me and said, get him on stage. and I played Bob Moran, and it was that. It was like 60,000 people at the Padres Stadium in San Diego. But I was just like, I gotta concentrate. And then the next show, big show that I did with them was at the Washington Monument, where you and I met, for 1 million people. And that was really, I had to just block everything out and just listen. And I felt it was like I played a song and it was like 3 minutes, and I felt like I'd been boxing, just sweating, so focused and strong. And that's, I think at the baseball stadium, they kind of saw that Carl Wilson was the musician. He was the band. He was sort of the leader. And he, like he said, he would say, watch my elbow for time. And he'd be like kind of a saw thing. But I think they eventually liked me as a musician, and that was important. And then I just kept hanging around more and more and more, and put them on my shows. There was during a time in the 80s when they were sort of, they were just kind of in the background and came on Full House and stuff. I don't know. Did I answer that question?
Yeah. It's just, it's really, like I said, there's like a Forrest Gump quality to certain aspects of your life.
It's funny.
It's like, oh, then he plays on stage with it. Like, what? That's amazing.
Look at all the things you've done. When did you went to school? You got your degree before Big Bang Theory?
Right. I did Blossom for 5 years, and then I went to UCLA for undergrad and grad, and then I had 2 kids. I had my first son in grad school.
How old are they now?
They're now 15 and 18.
Wow.
And then I went back to Big Bang when they were little, still nursing, my younger one. Yeah. I mean, he's not nursing now. He was still nursing when I joined Big Bang Theory.
But everybody was in the same bed. I got it. How did you keep him alive? Because my son's 5.5, and I smell fire, and I'm sure it's somewhere in the house. You've been very vocal about your parenting styles and parenting, correct? Yeah. And the kids are turning out great, right?
Actually, I will say, I don't believe that there's a formula. If there was, someone would have figured it out 50,000 years ago, and we'd all be doing it.
What about the formula of love?
But the formula of, yes, the formula of love. No, I was blessed with exactly what God thought I could handle, which was 2 very mild-mannered humans. My first was very mild-mannered. I mean, high needs, like always needed to be carried and didn't walk till he was 18 months, and he was very heavy. But I thought, okay, my second one's going to be insane. But no, I got like 2 chubby, as babies, they were just like chubby lumps who didn't want to walk. They didn't want to do anything. They just wanted to nurse and be held and clap their hands.
That's me.
But
That wasn't funny. Come on, that was
that
was low hanging fruit that I just grabbed.
No, but that was low hanging fruit. No, I didn't have children who liked danger. They didn't even like to run. They didn't like their feet off the ground too much. Their dad was like this. So apparently that's like, God was like, she can't handle more than that. I got two like that. And they're different.
Do they live there? They're there. So you're divorced, right?
I've been divorced for, 12 years.
Oh, really?
12? Yeah, something like that. Almost 12 years.
And how was that? With the co-parenting was good?
It's okay. I mean, it's hard, and I will say that, my kids were 4 and 7 when we got divorced. And I don't know that there's a good age to get divorced if it really is what has to happen. But like, I don't think they've gotten over it. Every time they have to go back and forth, it's like, oh, I got a pair of shoes. I only got 1 pair of shoes. I got to bring them back and forth. Like, I'll buy you another. No, I don't want another every weekend.
But is it the shoes or is it the?
This is, you know what? This is why therapy exists.
Exactly. I mean, this is what your show is about. You really get into it with other guests.
Do.
With me, you're doing it.
We dig it. Well, both of my kids would like to be on the podcast and are terrified to be on the podcast.
Why?
And no, they don't listen.
Are they home right now?
No, they're not. No, they're at school.
Well, we could get them. Well,
no.
All right, fine. Should we FaceTime them? Can we FaceTime them?
No, they don't want that.
So you did that. You had the thing. You got divorced. It was tough.
I did that, got the thing. Then I went to Big Bang Theory, and then I was there for 9 years.
Wow. And how was that? The greatest?
I mean,
how did you remember those lines?
That's your question.
I was on. Yeah, stupid. I know. I was on ER, and I couldn't remember. I mean, that dialogue was very difficult. I think I saw you over. Was it during there?
I feel like we've interacted in we don't all know each other, but we've interacted in other ways. When I think about Big Bang Theory, like I was thinking about what you talked about with Full House and just the things that happen to the people playing these characters. And what I think about is like during those 9 years, like I got divorced, my dad died, like all sorts of things happened. Like life happens while you're in front of the camera as well.
Were you close with your dad?
I was very close with my dad. Yes.
That was what killed me with my parents.
Yeah, I was just going to ask a bit. You were very close with your parents, and
Yeah.
I've seen my big fat Greek wedding more than twice. And did you come from a very kind of ethnically steeped sort of Greek family? Like, were your parents immigrants? Were your grandparents immigrants?
My grandfather was. My mom was English, Irish.
Oh, okay.
So my dad was Greek, and the name was Stamatopoulos, and they chopped it off when it came through Ellis Island. So that, yeah, but there was a lot, but it was just a loving family. It was just a lot of love, and same with your, the Jewish. There's family and people and eating and fun and care, praying, and so that was part of it, and that's what I always wanted. But wait, when Bob died. So I remember someone asked me about this recently. I remember just stressing about my parents dying. Like that's all I over obsessed about it. And I was at something. I remember a bar or something, and Helen Hunt was there, and she said, "Ever been to therapy?" I'm like, "No." If I ever went to therapy, I would just tell them I'm obsessed with my parents dying, and they would say, "Well, they're alive now." So, like, I knew what was going on. They're alive now, so go spend time with them. And then my dad died the next day. Oh, you got to come. I blame Helen. I'm kidding. So that was the thing. And when he died, I asked. So you're right, going through life with these cast members and divorce and death. And I asked Bob to MC my dad's funeral, and he got up and said, "Good evening. Tonight's specials are cake and cock, and we're out of cake." My mom had a heart attack, and maybe I became an orphan. No, and it was Bob, and then it was his way of dealing with death, and it kind of became, he was the term "too soon" was invented for Bob, because he had a lot of death, a lot of sadness in his life. That's how he dealt with it. But your dad died. Your mom's still around, and did she ever date again or no?
No. Where my parents come from, you just one and done.
Yeah,
They met in 1961, and just that's all she wrote.
That's good. That's a good. Those are good examples for you.
You say something about your mom that's very sweet and I think kind of funny, but I want to ask you about it. You say that you cannot help wonder. This is on page 270 for those of you who are following along. "I can't help but wonder if my attachment to her, your mother, is preventing me from finding a partner who I can build a life and family with." Your mom was very intense and explicit. And I mean, her notes that are throughout the book are so beautiful.
She wasn't intense.
Well, I meant intense in a good way. Like this is like a really
Loving.
Like if I could have written the script of what I think your mom should have written you in notes, like it would have been those things. Did that feel intimidating to you? Like, oh my gosh, like how am I going to find someone to love me like my mom?
Well, not now. Looking back, maybe it did, but no. It was just she had enough love to fuel a small country, and everybody that was around her would say that. I could tell who she's talked to. She loved Vegas, and so I'd be in the casino with her, and she'd love playing all night. But people would walk by, and go, "Oh, they must have saw my mom. They must have," because they would walk a little taller. They'd feel better about themselves, and they'd have a picture of me probably, but that she would pass out to the pit bosses. But seriously though, she would find like whatever the best part of you is. That was how she defined you. So she was. Maybe her love was intense, yeah. And when we became sort of, hopefully it was a healthy codependent, but it was on the edge of. It was when my dad died, and I would, and the divorce happened around then too. So she needed me, and I needed her, and it was a comfort zone. I would drive down to her. She called our house where I grew up in Orange County the Castle of Comfort, and it was. I felt at one point I was like, I think I'm staying here. I think I've been down here too much. And then when she started to really get falter, I was like, oh, I have to spend more time with. And then it was that. We knew she was going to go, so we just kind of waiting for that terrible. And then I just went boom downhill fast.
Yeah, I wonder if you can talk a little bit about like, were you a recreational drinker and drug user, and then at some point it veered into like, oh, this is a problem? Or looking back, did you have problems from the get? They say first it's drinking, then it's drinking and problems, and then it's just problems. Where did those phases shift for you?
My parents were probably functioning alcoholics, but they didn't drink until they were like in their 30s. And my dad retired probably too soon. I mean, he had restaurants, but he was just hanging around and wanted to be with the family. And so they would just start drinking, and they were functioning. But when it's a disease and it's hereditary, I think I feel like I had it, and so I would poke at it for years. I'm like, I'm fine. I'm fine. Poking, and then one day it goes, "Argh!" And you're like, oh shit, man, I need a drink to. So I could stop on a dime. That was my defense, really. Oh, it's drink, I could stop, and I would. I'd stop. I would, do whatever project, a pilot, a TV show, whatever, and then I would reward myself with, okay, I went to do it. And it just got harder and harder to stop and start again. And it was just, But then some people said, "Oh my God, thank God you finally went to rehab," and others said, "I didn't really, I didn't notice it. I didn't. I was surprised that you."
Was that your drug of choice? Like,
No, well, mostly alcohol. Then like later you use ecstasy and this kind of stuff. And there's this drug called GHB, which is lethal, and that's what I had when I got a DUI. I mean, I was so out of it. I was so out of it. They didn't take a mug shot. Thank God. They took me right to the hospital, and I was out. And I wake up and I see this bright light, and I go, I'm in heaven. I hope it's heaven. And then I see somebody, and I think of God, and it was Saget. And no, it's Bob. And I go, God. And I checked his zipper, and that was his joke. But I could have died. I could have killed people. And you know what I did? I went home, and I sat in my office, and I drank another bottle of wine. And then I realized that I got texts, and my sisters finally got a hold of me when I was in Cedars, and I was under an alias, so they couldn't find me anywhere. And finally, I think it was Saget said, wait, he's under this," and so they found me, and my sisters were crying, they said, "Are you okay?" And I was the one taking care of them all the time. And all of a sudden, they said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Yeah, yeah." I said, is this out? Does anybody know?" And she goes, "Yes, it's all over the news." I'm like, "Oh God." So I came home with that, and I was like, I can't deal. I got drunk, and then I realized, oh shit, you brought it up. You said my Big Fat Greek Wedding. I had to go to Canada because I was in the second movie. I had some scenes in the second movie with Rita Wilson, and I went, and I don't remember being there. I was kind of liquored up, and I came home from that, and my sisters and a few other people around.
So wait, I'm sorry. I'm going to stop you 1 second. So that incident, GHB, alcohol, driving, that was not bottom for John Stamos.
No, it was bottom, but I didn't get it.
Right.
I guess. And I just numbed myself for a few weeks after that. And then when I came home, my sisters and there were some other people said, "Okay, it's time to we found this place." And I go, "Okay, I'm done. I'm ready. I'm ready." I hated it. I hated the way I felt. I hated disappointing people. I hated myself. I hated looking in the mirror going, this is not who my parents raised. What am I doing? Who is this idiot? I would be so embarrassed. And I had no, look, I shouldn't have, I had everything growing up. I had a beautiful childhood. I had no excuse to fuck my life up. Like people that come from, terrible upbringings and, abuse and whatever it may be, and they make it out and they do well and they stay great. Like I had no excuse to screw my life up like that. And I did. And it made me sick. And, I came around, but, it's just these things that you go, and again, like I set out to write a hero story. I did this, and I know with this book, and then I slowly, I should talk about this. I should talk about that, and then I was like, oh man, there are a lot of ups and downs, and while promoting this, it seems like mostly the downs are the things that are all out there, and I'm like, God, was I that fuck? Did I over exaggerate this thing? And and looking at the book, it's like 330, but it's like, no, there's a lot of other fun,
Totally.
stuff. But
Well, and I think I think also, I think I was talking to Valerie about this, before, like you really present the evolution of a human. I mean, it really does feel like, a hero's journey. And to hear you talk about therapy, like can you talk about when did you get into therapy? What is that like?
Do you know Phil Stutz? Have you heard of him?
Of course I've heard of him.
So I got in after my dad died, and I remember going to someone in New York, and I went in there. I was crying like a baby because I didn't grow up with it. My household, my parents were intelligent, but we weren't. I didn't grow up in a household like yours. I think it was more. It was. Academics were not like the top. I'm not saying what yours was, but it wasn't the main thing. We never talked politics. There was, my mom was Catholic, so we did that. My dad was Greek Orthodox, but we didn't go that way. And so it was a very, it was a, and I didn't work at school. I sloughed off, and it was, my dad, really wanted me to go to college, business, and take over his hamburger joint. And I thought, I don't know, I hate that. And I went to sign up at the local college, the Cypress College, and I couldn't find the sign up room. So I went home. I went to Knott's Berry Farm first, then I went home. It was close to my house. And my dad said, whatever you do, you have to start next semester. I'm going to kick you out of here, blah, blah, blah. And so I thought, I got to get on TV. And that's around the time I got into our hospital. But when he died, you look at your parents at some point, you get older and you go, they're just human. I never got to that with my dad. He was always bigger than life. He was my superhero. He was my best man at my wedding, my best friend. I just loved him. So when I lost him, it was a mess. So I went there in New York but I didn't know how to, this is what I was getting at. I didn't know, and AA was like that too. I didn't know how to talk that sobriety talk or the therapy talk. I didn't know about, deep letting stuff out and your emotions. And we don't talk about that. My dad was like, don't talk about religion, don't talk about us. And it was all very surfacey for many years. Now that he's passed away, I wrote the book. Sorry, Dad. But so when he went, so then my manager at the time, Alan Eisman, gave me the greatest gift of all. He said, go see this Phil Stutz guy. And Phil had this really shitty apartment on Texas over there in
West Side, yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, this is terrible. And the walls were shitty and the carpet was, and then, but he didn't have like a separate room so you wouldn't see the other person. And you see all these gigantic celebrities coming out. I'm like, what the hell? We'd be stuck in an elevator with something. Is that something? And I was like, oh, Phil. And one of the first things he said to me was, he said, if you weren't so fucking stupid, you'd realize how good you have it. I'm like, okay. And that stuck with me. And it took me a long time to agree with that, or to get it. He was very practical. He's like talking to just a smart old guy, and I would go and I wouldn't go. And he's specialized in, substance abuse. So he was great when it was time to straighten up. He just sent me this book yesterday, Lessons. He's a new book, Lessons for Living.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I just love the guy. And, there was just really smart, and I'm not outing anybody, like Brad Gray. I got Saget to go. I said, we can't be friends. You're driving me crazy. You got to go to therapy. And if you don't, we can't be friends anymore. And then he ended up loving Phil. And, she talked to Dana Walden, like very, very, not just a bunch of dumb actors like me. There's some, and he makes these, he would write these little cards, and it was sort of like, I probably have some somewhere, but they're little index cards.
What do they say? Well,
they were like, here's the clown circus up here, and here's family, and here's where you are, and here's how you need to get there, and sobriety versus this. I did a show called You, where I played this psychiatrist, and I just did Phil. I brought in cards and he did the whole thing. So it was interesting because I just signed a book for him and I sent it to him, and it was just like, without you, I wouldn't have written this book. I'd be dead probably. I didn't want to kill myself because I was too vain, and I didn't want to but I didn't care if I died. I remember thinking that I don't care if I go tomorrow. Who cares? I've done everything. What a shallow view that was.
How has that changed now that you're a dad?
I hadn't done everything, and I still haven't done anything, but the main thing that I always wanted to be was a father. And now it's time to just be that a lot of the times, and just be, it's the little things. I'm telling you, I'm telling myself, it turns out to be the little things that really, really get me now. I called, the other day I was gone, but I got Billy a Bobo drink. He loves boba. I put it in the refrigerator and I FaceTimed him and I said, hey son, I got you a drink. Go look in the refrigerator. He jumped up and down screaming like I gave him $1 billion. Boba, boba, boba. And I just took that in, right? I mean, this morning I got up earlier and he crawled in bed with us, and And Caitlin texted me. She said, "It's cuddle o'clock." I said, "Oh, that's right." And I ran back down there, and I said, "These are the moments. The cuddle o'clock right now is where I need to be. All of me, it needs to be right there."
What are the things that you do to kind of keep your evenness or your sobriety? Are you a meditation person?
I have, the Beach Boys were all heavy, especially Mike Love was heavy into transcendental meditation.
Uh-huh.
So I learned that. I guess you'd get trained. I should meditate a lot more because I am a little hyper, and it really just to sit for 20 minutes and not, on the phone. What do you do? You do just
Yeah, I do. I mainly do guided meditations. I have a really, really loud inner critic that won't shut the F up. So for
saying
me,
what? That you're not good
all,
enough.
all
You're not
sorts of
this.
things. Why aren't
Tell
you
me.
more like John Stamos? That's one of the things it says.
No,
No, I'm just kidding.
The inner critic would
Um,
say it's a good thing.
Right.
But what does it tell me? What's in your head? What happens?
I do a lot of kind of over analyzing of decisions, like, whether it's like, did I say the right thing? Should I not have said that? I just have like a very ruminating kind of tape that plays. So for me, I like a guided meditation because it's something to listen to and try and follow that instead of my own thoughts. I've had some success with more of a silent meditation, but I've never done TM.
Yeah, I don't know if do you then go like you worry about something? Oh, did I say that? Whatever, and then like you finally confront the person and say, "Oh, I'm sorry." They go like, "What? What are you talking about?" Like,
Yes,
you know what I mean?
mostly I have found that people care less about what I'm thinking, saying, feeling, and existing like than I think they do. Yeah, I mean, it's a type of self-centeredness, honestly, to kind of keep that focus on like, did I do the right thing? How do you feel about me? Right? It's that sort of like,
But I bet
it's
you
yeah.
do the right thing most of the time. And what are you going to
Oh,
do? It's like
well, if Jonathan were here, he'd probably disagree. My kids would disagree.
they would.
Yeah, that's their job.
What do you do wrong?
Oh my gosh, like I can't breathe right. Sometimes that just annoys the heck out of them. But I frequently say I'm glad I have teenagers. Otherwise, I wouldn't know how to do anything. I wouldn't know how to open the refrigerator.
Right,
I wouldn't know how to
right.
close. I wouldn't know how to drive. I wouldn't know how to get dressed. Like everything I do is like, oh my gosh, how could you not do that?
Yeah, but someday they're going to come back and say, "Thank you, mother. What a beautiful childhood we had."
I hope so. I've been waiting for thank you, mommy, for the milk all those years when I wasn't eating anything.
You talked about my mom's notes. Have you written your kids any notes or anything?
I did when they were younger. And my parents were big on notes. My dad especially was a poet, and so he would write
That's right.
poems and stuff.
And you have them?
I do, of course I do. Yeah. But I have they actually started writing notes when they were quite young, which I think was because I was writing them notes. My older one would write notes about how angry he was that he had a brother. And so we've kept some of those, and those are funny too.
But that's special. I again, like, I didn't want to write a book, and I kind of said, okay, and maybe I'll write about being a father. And then Bob died. Maybe I'll write that. And then I remembered my mom's notes.
I have a stupid question about your book.
How many pages?
That's not really your writing, like the handwritten part.
That's my writing.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, that's what I said.
Every chapter?
Yeah, I wrote all this and that.
And then every chapter starts with that.
I wrote every chapter. I wrote it in here. I drew hummingbirds.
I love that. I'm very excited that that's really your writing.
And then I put my mom's it's like here that you could see. That's my mom's real writing. That's the real note. And this was an early one. This is beautiful. She said, "I'm the only person on earth that has shared a heartbeat with you." I'll start crying. The last note I found from her after she died, when I was at my low, it was right before all this bad stuff. And she just hid them around the house. We just find them. To this day, sometimes I'll dig through a box and see. And she said, "Life is an occasion. Rise to it." I have it right there. Don't be sad because I died. Be happy because I lived. I had a wonderful life.
Wow.
Isn't it beautiful?
It really is. And this book is really, it's a testament to everything your parents instilled in you. It's a beautiful book. John Stamos, if you would have told me, thank you so much for being here. We wish you only good things and only good things continuing with your child who still loves you and thinks that you're awesome. And at some point will tell you, you don't even know how to put your shoes on right, Dad.
He's starting to do that kind of stuff. But thank you for having me. We've been, like you said, we see each other here and there over the years, but I watch you and I'm really proud of the way that you conducted your life and the
Thank
things you
you.
stand for. You get out there and you're convicted, and you're also a smart, intelligent woman that doesn't take any shit from any dumbass guy. And that's really cool. If you would have told me when we were marching in DC all those years that one day you'd have a podcast and I'd be on here.
Talking about your book.
Yeah, weird, huh?
I hope you enjoyed that conversation I had with John Stamos. I do wish Jonathan was here because Jonathan loves when people ask about me. And I think I did a pretty good job of answering some of John's questions. Really cool, like, to get to talk to him in depth. He's much funnier than I thought that he would be. And I enjoyed that. And from our breakdown to the one we hope you never have, we'll see you next time.
It's Mayim Bialik's breakdown. She's gonna break it down for you. She's got a neuroscience PhD or two. One fiction, one and now she's gonna break down. It's a breakdown. She's gonna break it